And we're back with the engine. I'm taking off the timing cover to see if I can figure out why this crankshaft's so stiff to turn. Hopefully with this cover removed the crankshaft will turn freely and I can pinpoint the problem inside this cover. I've also noticed that some of the screws have been replaced with Allen screws a size bigger, so they've obviously been tapped out for some reason. And there we have it. For some reason this cover is binding up the crankshaft. The oil pump seems to be turning okay, so a bit of further investigation at this point. I decided to remove each gear one at a time, starting with the distributor gear. At this point I noticed that the shims that usually ride on the intermediate gears were very thick, almost as if they'd been replaced with washers. So I carried on and removed the distributor, replaced the cover and turned over the engine again. With the distributor removed and the casing replaced, the crankshaft tightened up again. So obviously it's nothing to do with the distributor and drive. So this time I removed the oil feed quill to see if that made any difference. Back on with the casing and it tightened up again. I then took out the shims that looked like washers on the intermediate gears and put the casing back on again. And at last the crankshaft turned freely. So obviously these washers were put in place of shims that must have been lost. All that was left now was to remove the camshafts, both inlet and exhaust, and split the cases to remove the crank. I left myself a little note to remind me of the shims that need replacing. I put the cover on one last time just to confirm what I had found. Happy enough, I started unbolting the crankcases. A not so gentle tap with the mallet and the case is split. The crank is still located in the timing side by the pinion. This just stops the crank falling on the floor, but with the cases split, I lock the connecting rod and undo the pinion nut, which is a left-hand thread, and that then enables the crankshaft to be withdrawn. The end of the crank is then tapped to loosen the pinion. Which then falls on the floor, of course. Main bearings seem fine, connecting rod seems fine. So that's it, completely stripped. This section of the crankcase has to be built up with weld and remachined. The woodruff key has to be welded up and remachined. And these oversized threads have to be reduced with an insert and brought back to its original size. Everything else needs to be cleaned. Thanks for watching.